Good day, fantasy followers, fantasy flyer followers. We're having fun on a not Friday, it's Tuesday. Hi, my name is Derek. I'm in the fantasy pad. And you can see, unlike Friday's show, I'm not by myself anymore. My man,
Oh, boys! I'm back!
it's Taylor. How's it going, man?
Yeah, I am back. I'm doing okay. Still recovering here. But yeah, I'm definitely happy to be back. And it was I was sad to miss Friday, but excited
Sometimes
for
you gotta
another
do it.
show.
Yeah, sometimes you got to do it. Health first. What do we have if we don't have our health, right?
That's right.
That's the biggest thing. So Fantasy Flyer always here to help you with your fantasy and your football needs. Taylor, again, appreciate you joining me. I know you're still getting over your whole thing, but we have a lot to talk about. I would say, as usual, we're going to start off with our 9 segment, which is it's your bread and butter. I had to fill in for you on Friday. I felt a little, like I neglected it a little bit. I didn't do quite as well. So I'm going to put this one right squarely back in your wheelhouse. So Taylor, go ahead and take it away.
All right. We'll kick it off with teams that are on bye. The Detroit Lions, the Houston Texans, Las Vegas Raiders, and Tennessee Titans. So pay attention to players you have from them and make some moves if you need to. We'll throw out some weekly waiver wire pickups and maybe some options there for you. All right. It's obviously Tuesday, so it's a little lighter on the injury news, so take it with a grain of salt. Friday we'll have a lot more. James Conner, Arizona Cardinals, ribs. He went out during that game. He's questionable, so keep an eye on him. Not a lot of people have Darrell Williams, but I put him here since he is also questionable, which means that Eno Benjamin may be a huge benefactor. Baltimore Ravens, Rashad Bateman, ankle, he's questionable. Buffalo, Isaiah McKenzie, concussion, he's questionable. I'm sure a lot of you noticed there was a decent amount of concussions over the weekend. They're taking it even more serious and being a lot more cautious after, I think the Tua stuff was sort of the impetus for these new rules that they put in place.
Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird how that happens and all of a sudden everybody has a concussion?
Right.
Like nobody got called for a concussion and now all of a sudden everybody does.
Yeah. Actually, I heard somebody talking about the Teddy.
That's
concussion.
suspicious. That's weird.
Yeah, it's just odd.
The Teddy concussion.
That's not a concussion.
Exactly. Like nobody thought it was a concussion, but the guy in the booth, the spotter that called it out was like overly cautious about it, and they brought out the train or whatever you want to call it, the cart. And because they brought that out, that meant that he couldn't play the rest of the game or whatever. And it's just, yeah, like they went a little too far in the other direction, at least this week. We'll see if the spotters are a little better next week. But anyways, concussions, they suck. Carolina, Baker Mayfield actually has a high ankle sprain or injury, his left ankle. He is already listed as doubtful, so not really sure what they're going to do there, but I don't know that it could be much worse.
Yeah. I saw, I don't know, I just saw it on ESPN that they said he's out for 2 to 6 weeks,
Okay.
which also is a huge window. But I guess that's also what a high ankle sprain will give you. So I would imagine either Matt Corral, I didn't even say his name, or PJ Walker. PJ Walker came in after Baker got hurt, but it's not like it's a downgrade. So
Am I wrong? I was gonna say, yeah, Matt Corral's on IR.
Is he? I did not see. That's how little we've talked about him because you've had to deal with Baker and Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold is probably going to be back before the 6-week mark of that. I don't know about the 2 weeks. So
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I would imagine that they were probably going to switch to Sam Darnold at some point, unless he also wasn't playing well in practice, but yeah, Matt Corral hurt himself in preseason.
I did not know that. All right. Well, moving along. I guess in fantasy terms, the only thing that really means for almost anybody is you can't trust as much DJ Moore. I would stick with CMC because
Yeah, there's no way you're not playing him.
Yeah, you're not going to not play CMC. It's just, but DJ Moore, limit upside. Everybody else, sorry.
Yeah. Dallas, Dalton Schultz, PCL sprain. He's questionable. Probably. I think that's not trending in the right direction for him. But again, it's Tuesday. Keep your eye on these things. It looks like Dak Prescott is still. I'll just say what I read basically. He will start throwing on Wednesday, but it's still up in the air as to whether he'll play week 6. They have a decent enough record that I'd say they shouldn't force it, but Cooper Rush did have a not so great game this week. I don't know.
His last 2 weeks, he's been trending down. This is a game where I think you have both the Eagles and the Cowboys Sunday Night Football. This is a game where you're going to have to bring everything to the table. If he's ready, he should play. Because you need, first off, you need more than 100 passing yards, and you can't run on this Eagles team. The one thing I will say is that the offensive line for Dallas it's been better than I would expect being a Cowboys fan. It was better than I expected for the last probably 3 games. So you need every single bit of movement back there. And I think Dak is a little more spry than Cooper Rush. So that'd be my take on it. We'll talk more about that when we get to the Dallas game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously they would love to have him in there. Christian Watson for Green Bay, hamstring, he's questionable. I didn't get to watch much of this game, but I believe what I read was he left during the game, and obviously, what does it say here? Yeah, left during the game, and yeah, it doesn't really say one way or the other whether he's trending back or not. So keep an eye on that. But he's obviously kind of a borderline someone that you're probably not using.
It's sad, but in most leagues, yes. I would be more keen on Randall Cobb and Romeo Doubs.
Yeah, he was heavily used, Randall Cobb. Indianapolis, Ashton Doolin. Not, again, a crazy name that anybody really cares about, but I mention it in case you're in a deeper league, or if anything, you're just aware of this with the other guys, because he did fill in. He actually got put on IR. He has a foot injury, so you're gonna have to look elsewhere if anybody sits out from their team for some reason. Las Vegas, Darren Waller, he got hurt in the game, his hamstring, so he's questionable leading into this week. Miami.
Well, he's on bye, so.
Oh, that's right.
That's probably why you left him off. I saw you just add him.
I just added him. Yep. I was like,
and that'd be
why
you
didn't I
left
have
him
that?
off, because that I don't think will matter. Waller will probably be okay. He looked okay to come back in yesterday. He stood on the sideline with his helmet on, not stretching or doing anything for literally the entire second, most of the first quarter. And I also believe Foster Moreau will be back after the bye. He was almost in line to play last night against the Chiefs and did not. So I think their tight end situation is going to be fixed.
Okay. Yeah, I almost said at the top of the show, we'll see if I still remember how to do this. And looks like I'm a little rusty. Miami, Tyreek Hill, foot is questionable. He was in a boot after the game, but they're saying there's a chance he'll still play in week 6. Like I mentioned, or we talked about, Teddy Bridgewater and the concussion, and then no update on Tua yet. New England, Damian Harris got hurt in this game, which Ramondre Stevenson made the most of. But yeah, Damian Harris, hamstring, looks like he's doubtful. And Nelson Aguilar was also it was either before the game or during the game. His hamstring he injured. He's questionable. Another concussion, New Orleans, Chris Olave, he came down really hard on a long touchdown throw, and managed to hold on to it, but he looked like he was definitely out for a bit there. So he's listed as questionable. I don't know. Again, like we've said, it's tough to really say on concussions whether somebody will be back in a week or not. Everybody handles it differently. So yeah, hopefully he's doing much better. Pat Fryermuth, also concussion. He's questionable. Seattle, this one really hurts. Rashad Penny, fractured fibula. He is out and going to have season-ending surgery. Kenneth Walker made the most of his opportunity as well, and I mean he's honestly owned in a lot of leagues. So I say this now because I don't even know if we'll talk about him in the waiver wire section. But if he is available, grab him. But he's owned in like 70% of leagues, I think. Finally, Washington. With Jahan Dotson out, Diami Brown played and had some big long catches and I think 1 or 2 touchdowns. We'll talk about that when we get to the game, but looks like he got a little banged up. His groin, he's questionable. Logan Thomas calf, he's questionable. Jahan Dotson, he's still listed as questionable with that hamstring. And Carson Wentz, apparently they did some like light practice on Monday, or today's Tuesday. Light practice or walkthrough on Monday and light practice on Tuesday. And in Tuesday he was sort of reaching at his shoulder, so he's got some soreness in his shoulder and is questionable. That's all we got for 9.
All right. Wonderful job on the 9. I am writing down some extra names for our waiver section at the end of the show because as I go through, I'm adding, as I'm always adding, I'm adapting. That's what we do here on the Fantasy Flyer. We fly from the seat of our pants, and it's okay. Moving on, we'll start off our Week 5 slate review with a slobber knocker for one team, a sleeper for another. Steelers, they went to Orchard Park to take on the Bills. It did not go well for the Steelers. Literally from the opening snap, it didn't go well. What is it? 2 minutes into the game, there's like a 98-yard touchdown from Josh Allen to Gabriel Davis, and then subsequent kickoff, Steelers fumble, Bills get it back in their red zone. Didn't convert on that, but it was not off to a good start for the Steelers. They never got in the red zone, obviously. Bills won 38-3. Kenny Pickett struggled, but he didn't struggle like super horribly. I didn't write his yards down, which I just realized. I don't know why.
327.
Yeah, so definitely more yardage than Mitch Trubisky had. I guess we'll give it that plus. Only had 1 interception. I'm curious to see how the downs ended if that was the case. I didn't check and see how the plays went, like play by play. See if they must have punted a truck ton.
Yeah, it looks
you
like
you have it in front of you. Yeah.
I don't have the amount of punts, but yeah, there's a lot here. A handful of 3 and outs, but they had, obviously because of his yardage, they had some like 12 play drives, 10 play drives.
Yeah, so you got some first downs in there. I probably would have looked all of that up had I actually realized that I wrote the yardage down or not wrote the yardage down. But yeah, he missed opportunities, obviously, at times. If they're getting rid of it, he's probably having issues on third down. Also, Buffalo probably adapting to somebody who they don't have any film on, because that's, for the most part, with the team, they have nothing to go off of. I think that the theme of this squad for many of the remaining weeks is going to be growing pains. George Pickens was once again like one of his favorite targets. Deontay Johnson had more targets. On the other side, Josh Allen and Gabe Davis connected twice for 2 touchdowns. One was a 62-yarder, and the other was the 98-yarder, the aforementioned. He ended up having 3 catches. The other one was for 11 yards. So very similar day to Devontae Adams, just had a lot more, very similar stat line to Devontae Adams, just had a lot more yards. Josh Allen threw for 424 yards, 4 touchdowns, had an interception. That is a career high for Josh Allen. So good to see. I went into this game, I think I talked about it on Friday's show, the solo show, that he only averages 215 air yards, and he single-handedly almost doubled that. So good for Josh Allen. Stephon Diggs, 8 catches, 11 targets, 102 yards. He had a touchdown. Welcome to the show, Khalil Shakir. 3 catches on 5 targets, 75 yards, and a touchdown. When you don't have Isaiah McKenzie, and you don't have Jamison Crowder, and you don't have Dawson Knox, they got to go somewhere. Good for him. I think he's solidly going to be a third option for this team in the not too
Distant
words.
future.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's why
I'll
there's
just
2
have
of us.
I'm just gonna have a stroke over here for a second. It's all right. That was not good. Anyway, but yeah, in the not too distant future, he could easily be the third on this team, and I don't think they're going to need Jamison Crowder much longer, if he even comes. Had any update on that, but I guess that's neither here nor there. For Pittsburgh, we talked about Kenny Pickett's stat line. Damian Harris. Nope, that's wrong. Try again. Najee Harris, 11 carries, 20 yards, 3 catches, 16 yards. Not efficient, really. Run
So
game didn't get going.
That's one of the
What was that?
interesting things here is Harris not used in the receiving game at all, and he's actually a very solid receiving back. I don't really know why that was. I mean, Pickett threw the ball 52 times. He was obviously throwing it downfield a lot, so maybe he just doesn't
Right.
look for the check down or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a point of contention. It may also be someone who Pickett's not comfortable. He may not be working that side of the field as much, or that portion of the field. Jalen Warren had 4 catches for 39 yards. So Warren with 5 targets, Najee with 4. Let's see. Claypool had 9, Deontay Johnson had 13, George Pickens had 8 targets. So I would say the 9 that Warren and Harris got, I wouldn't be super concerned about it. I think it's just Jalen Warren cutting into Najee Harris.
That's true
That's
too.
where it's going to happen. That's where it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be. I mean, Najee Harris was not effective on the ground, and Jalen Warren was, but that could easily be the opposite side of the coin, next week. Well, maybe not next week. You face Tampa Bay, but still, any other week. Pickens, 6 catches, 8 targets, 83 yards. Deontay Johnson, 5 catches, 13 targets, 60 yards. Pittsburgh defense was bad, obviously, because they gave up 38 points, but they had 0 sacks. I think they pressured Josh Allen once. I think they pressured him once. They had a statistical pressure once. And that is not how you're going to win against the Buffalo Bills. So I'm not surprised by the outcome. I'm surprised by the how do I say it? Amount of defeat.
Yeah, I was gonna say the lack
38-3.
of offense on the
The
other
lack
side.
of offense. Well, again, I don't think this was a game where we came in and we said, oh, I think the Steelers are going to put up 28 points. And it's going to be a 5-point game. Would we have been surprised and happy for Kenny Pickett had that been the story? Yes. But to see them not scoring as much as the Bills isn't a surprise. To only get 3 points, there's got to be something a little bit. There's got to be something else to the story, and I don't think it's all necessarily Buffalo's defense.
I mean, he's
So
no
that's why-
Bailey Zappi, that's for sure.
Well, what's Bailey Zappi? Yeah, let's just put. You know what? That's what Kenny Pickett needs. He needs a date with the Detroit Lions. That's what he
Yeah,
needs.
exactly.
The Detroit Lions would. You and me could step into the backfield and throw 2 touchdowns against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
At least it seems that way. I know I'm probably offending so many Detroit fans, but they're used to it. Next up, very interesting matchup next Monday night: Buffalo and Kansas City. That's a juicy one. Pittsburgh will be at home. Yes, at home to face Tampa Bay. I don't really have anything else from this. Any thoughts from you? Anything you want to add?
Just more on the Jalen Warren, Najee Harris. Jalen Warren actually had more yards, only 4 more, but was more efficient with his attempts. 5 carries, 24 yards, 4.8 per carry versus 1.8 for Najee Harris. So I don't know. Interesting. I know they like Jalen Warren, but it's not like Najee's a bad running back, although he's never been super efficient. Anyways, I don't know. I don't know if I'm a Najee Harris owner, which I'm not, if I'm like panicking, but it's in a redraft league. If I don't know, I might find an opportunity where he does well and potentially try to trade him away because it might be rough going with a rookie quarterback.
Yeah. Buffalo held the Steelers to 0-4 in the red zone. The Steelers held Buffalo to 1-4 in the red zone. So you take away the 2 mountainous passes to Gabe Davis. I guess that means something. But they didn't, and so that's the problem. So
Yeah.
Pittsburgh's defense wasn't as bad as it looks on paper. It was 2 of those plays. Allen was 20 for 31 on his 424 yards, so he was averaging 20 points per 20 yards per completion. 20 points per completion. What is this, Madden? Next game that would have been our host v host game, Chargers at the Browns, and it would have been a good pick. This was a bit of a barn burner, back and forth matchup. Browns got off to a hot start. They were up 14-3, and then the Chargers came back with 14 straight in the second quarter, and then it was 17-14, and they kind of just traded blows from there out. Important to note, Austin Eckler is still a running back who can do things with a football. I would say I'm going to put Austin Eckler with Josh Jacobs as 2 of the must starts still. This would be the second week in a row where I said it's probably a good idea to start Austin Eckler, and I was right. He goes ham-sammy a little bit. 16 carries, 173 yards, had a touchdown, caught all 4 of his targets for 26 yards. This is kind of what we want to see the Chargers do with Austin Eckler.
Mm-hmm.
And the team moved the football a whole lot. It helped them. Just extremely productive. Great in the red zone.
I would say this is a top. But
it can't be too much of a top. Last week was a top too.
Oh shit, was it?
Yeah,
right,
that was the game against Houston. That was the game against Houston.
Oh, right.
Where he had two rushing touchdowns and 100 and some yards and 6 catches and another receiving touchdown. That's probably more of a ceiling. This was still
double top.
Double top.
Yeah.
Well, if he gets a third top in a row, and it's just got to be his normal game, we got to stop talking about it. Now he's got to go out and Travis Kelce somebody and get 4 touchdowns.
Oh my god. Let's talk about that.
Repressed memories. He's been a great asset ever since. I don't know if it took Keenan Allen being out longer than expected, or what it was for them to fire up Austin Eckler. Sony Michel had 1 carry, so go to town, Austin. Unless you're not performing through the first 20 minutes of a football game, you're going to have literally you're the bell cow again. On the other side, Nick Chubb is not the only reason. He was a big help as to why the Browns stayed in this football game. He's still explosive. It seems like it's really hard to throw him off track. Brissett is losing a little bit of his touch last couple of weeks. He's been less efficient. One of the couple of quarterbacks I've noticed that they had hot starts and now they're starting to settle back into that. Mediocre might be a little rough of a term, but that more pedestrian stat line, pedestrian performances. He's seen a drop in his QB rating now 2 weeks in a row. I'm curious as whether the Browns' success can be contributed to the continuous failures of the defense to contain Chubb. Because if Brissett keeps taking some of these steps, maybe not steps back, but these games that aren't really, 85% completion, 2 touchdown, running for 40 yards, looking good on the field while doing all of that. But Nick Chubb gets shut down in that same game. What is going to happen to this Browns offense? They fell from the most efficient offense to the 9th offense already. I'm not trying to be the party pooper for the Browns, but they're becoming slowly more mid-pack than top offense, would you say?
I mean, first off, let's stop while we're ahead. We don't want to lose all our viewers.
That's fair. That's fair. The Browns are still elite. Let's chill. Amari Cooper is good. Like Chubb is still, and there's no reason. Chubb, one bad Nick Chubb game will merely make him the top 3 instead of top 2 running backs. Like
Yeah.
that's the worst that's going to happen. He's still Nick Chubb. And clearly Kareem Hunt isn't going to touch him in the backfield. It just seems like if you do stop Nick Chubb, you can lose a football game easier than if you don't stop Nick Chubb. Or
yeah. I mean,
from the Browns.
Nick Chubb is obviously an incredible, just like pure running back, and it's looking at the fantasy points. It's kind of crazy to see like him and Austin Eckler had similar games in terms of 2 touchdowns and yardage. But you add in Eckler's receiving game, and he now has like 10 points over Chubb. And it's just unfortunate if you're a Chubb owner, and that's why he isn't ranked as high at the beginning of the season, because he doesn't have that ceiling, that upside.
That pass catching.
Yep.
They kind of afford that to Kareem Hunt, more or less. And it is what it is as far as if it works. I mean, Nick Chubb has more touchdowns than Jacoby Brissett does throwing through 5 games.
So. I mean, he is, I would say, like
he's a freight train.
Yeah, I would say he's 60 to, I won't say 70, but he's around 60% of their like offense.
Right, and that's my posit for if you get a run defense. Like if they were to go up against, one of the best run defenses right now, which there's, the top one that comes off of my mind as far as the team holding up is, well, the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
We just saw what they did to Najee Harris, who couldn't do anything as far as moving the football by himself in a run game. If they can hold Nick Chubb to under 70 yards, even if you give up a touchdown at some point in the game, force Jacoby to throw. Not every team can do that because, again,
right.
Nick Chubb. But I feel like it's just an interesting posit for the Browns. They lost this football game because of a missed field goal. So that's the only thing. They moved it downfield. They were there, just missed. So 28-30, they lose. Herbert, 22 for 34, 228 yards, 1 touchdown. We went through Austin Eckler's stat line. Mike Williams, 10 catches on 13 targets, 134 yards. Not to sidetrack a little bit, but ever since Eckler's gotten going, Mike Williams has been unstoppable too. Hasn't quite hit the touchdowns, but it's almost like when there's more than one weapon, it becomes harder to guard the team.
Imagine that.
Imagine. Good God. I think we might have figured something out. Jacoby Brissett, 21 for 34, 230 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Nick Chubb, 17 carries, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. Average day at the office, David Njoku, 6 catches on 6 targets, 88 yards. I don't think he's on a waiver wire, but if he is, feel free. Amari Cooper, 7 catches, 12 targets, 76 yards, 1 touchdown. Better game than I expected him to have, but it's good to see that he is getting in all of the targets. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 4 catches for 50 yards. Important to note, it's not all the Amari Cooper show. Cleveland had 3 rush touchdowns and had the only turnover in the game. We know that was their problem against the Falcons in week 4. Here we are in week 5. Only interception. Next up, Cleveland stays at home to take on the Patriots, your Patriots, and the Chargers will have another Monday Night Football matchup with the can I please not watch them Denver Broncos. Is
this their second Monday Night Football game, Denver?
This is their 4th primetime game in 6 weeks.
Good God.
4th.
The
Fourth?
NFL really thought that
Fourth.
Russ was gonna.
I don't have NFL. Listen to me very carefully.
Stop it. Get some help.
Not entertaining football. And I could take, and again, I'll fully take that back if he actually goes out and produces an entertaining football game, and the pieces are there for this one. I'll give it that. Anything else on this game?
No.
No. All right, cool. We'll get one more in before we go to break. Lions at the Patriots. So this is all Patriots talk because the Lions scored the same amount of points on Sunday as you and I did.
Yeah.
I honestly think, and I wrote this in the notes, and it's true. I think Bailey Zappi looks more comfortable, and I shouldn't base this off facing the worst defense in the entire league. But Bailey Zappi looks more comfortable at times than Mac Jones does. He looks more composed in the pocket. He looks like he's more, I don't know, intent on moving the offense. He doesn't look as confused with the offensive play. I don't know exactly how to word it, but something about him seems fresh.
It's interesting you say that because I kind of felt the same way too. He did seem pretty comfortable back there, and I'm pretty sure the only interception he had was bobbled by a wide receiver and then like popped up or something, and so it wasn't his fault. Yeah, I was.
And that's the
Yeah.
only blemish to his stat line too. 'Cause
Exactly.
if he doesn't throw that interception, he's got a QB rating of what, 140,
Right, something like
145,
that.
17 for 21 for 188 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't do a ton, but he was very efficient. He got a throwing touchdown, and I mean, you look at the touchdowns here. They only had the one receiving touchdown, and then they had a bunch of kicks and one defensive touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah, they didn't exactly light it up, but
Right.
yeah, like
he was a solid game manager.
Jacoby Myers did have the touchdown. I didn't write it on the stats. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I'll just add that.
yeah. Myers was back and looked very healthy, and
He looks better with Bailey Zappi as
Yeah.
the quarterback. Like, I'm gonna start calling if he keeps going at this pace, and I'm gonna have to start calling him like, what's the little I just like a bug zapper. We're just gonna have to start calling him bug zapper. But yeah, Jacoby Myers looked good. The Detroit defense did not. It lived up to their expectation. They had one pressure as well all game long, so if it makes you feel better, Pittsburgh, Detroit, that should not make you feel better. 0 quarterback hits, no tackles for. I think they had a tackle for loss, but it wasn't good. The Detroit offense kind of hit a wall. I think I said this 3 weeks ago. This was the first test for the Detroit offense, was facing a real defense, and they failed miserably. And you can't even blame the pieces that are missing. Like, they had Josh Reynolds, they had TJ Hawkinson. Amon-Ra St. Brown, believe it or not, played.
Right.
You wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it looking at the stat line. But this was where obviously Bill Belichick is very experienced. But the Lions couldn't move the football at all. Counting turnover on downs, they had 7 turnovers.
Yeah.
they turned the ball over on downs, I think 4 times by itself. So it wasn't. It seemed this was the old Jared Goff coming to play. It was not impressive. I shared a meme that I made on our 53-man Dynasty League channel, and I maybe if I feel like adding it, I'll put it in the video, like right here. But it's true. This is the first defense that Jared Goff faced, and he looked like he never left LA, or his first year in Detroit when he was the same person in a different uniform. It was bad. Both teams were 0 for 7 in the red zone, so you got 29 points, Patriots, but there's work to do. Let's be honest. All in all, I would say a much needed win for New England. The AFC is a mess behind the Buffalo Bills to its fullest extent. Miami is having quarterback issues. The Jets have probably a worse record than they should, but record's all that matters. And then here come the Patriots. This was a big win, I think, for them, especially with Miami taking the L, which was the other team you needed to. It's a wild card setting win. I'll say it that way for New England. We could look back at this on week 17, week 18 and go, wow, that was a win that could have gone the other way had Jared Goff been who he was the first 4 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That's
mean,
really what it is.
to your point about Detroit not really moving the ball well, it's kind of crazy because the drive that I felt like, and it was early on, that I felt like they were moving decently was the one that he had the interception on, and
Mhm.
and they obviously ran that back for the touchdown. So
Yeah.
not that
It doesn't get much. It doesn't get much better after the bye for Detroit.
right. So
They start off. They start off with the first 2 games after the bye are Packers, and then Cowboys. So best of luck with that. Jared Goff, 19 for 35, 229 yards. He had the interception. Josh Reynolds, 6 catches on 10 targets, 92 yards. I'd say he did okay. That's fine. Everybody else. Craig Reynolds, no relation to Josh Reynolds, 3 catches, 68 yards. He also had 6 carries and 24 yards. TJ Hawkinson, huge flop. 1 catch, 4 targets, 6 yards after his explosion against the Seahawks. There were so many fantasy managers who played him and were like, look what I got. And then they woke up on Monday morning with absolute all of the tears in their eyes. For New England, Bailey Zappi, 17 for 21, 188 yards, touchdown, interception. Ramondre Stevenson hugely benefited from the loss of Damian Harris. 25 carries, 161 yards. I believe he also had a couple catches, but less significant than his run impact. And Jacoby Myers, 7 catches, 8 targets, 111 yards, and had the lone touchdown from Zappi. The Patriots will go to Cleveland, like we just talked about. And like I said, Detroit is on bye. And I think for a team that really probably looks better than their record is, I don't think they're going to win. Like, I think this pace will keep up for Detroit. Like, if they're going to keep giving up points, you can score all you want. But look at it. They lost to the Seahawks by 3, 48-45. They lost to the Eagles week 1 or week 2, 38-35. And they're giving up too many points. It's all defensive.
Yeah.
Anything else in this game for you before we take a break?
Nope, just a stat correction, which I thought this sounded wrong. The interception did not lead to a touchdown, just a field goal. The touchdown was a later incident.
Okay. You watched more of it than I did. I just watched enough of it to know that Bailey Zappi looked, I mean, Detroit made Bailey Zappi look very good, but Bailey Zappi looked very good regardless, and New England made Jared Goff look not good. So, all right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we'll hit up the Seahawks and Saints game. We'll also talk about the Dolphins and the New York Jets. We'll have a couple other games in there on our next segment. We're also going to take a ride on the Fantasy Flyer Express at the end or beginning of segment 3, one of the two. Anyway, we'll be back. Taylor, sign us off, would you please?
We'll see you on the flip.
This meeting is being recorded.
And welcome back to part 2 of this episode of the Fantasy Flyer. We're going to continue with our Week 5 slate review. We're going to talk about the Seahawks and the Saints right now. Seahawks were in the Superdome. I didn't forget. Saints come away with a win here, 39-32. This game was another rather interesting one. A couple takeaways. First one, biggest one for me, Andy Dalton is, successful. He plays good football all of a sudden. I don't know what kind of leadership Jameis Winston has that he doesn't display on the field, but it works to Andy Dalton, I guess. He's consistently making this just the solid plays, just low risk throws. It pays off. It seems that way. Big help in this game was he had Alvin Kamara back. Kamara came through both in the pass and the rush game. 103 yards on the ground, 6 catches on 6 targets for 91 yards, including a 54 yarder on a screenplay for his longest of the game.
54.
54, yeah. Another silent but deadly is Taysom Hill. I'm pretty sure he was the RB5 on the week, RB6. May even be a little too high, but he had 112 yards rushing with 3 touchdowns. Like he did, I don't know. As a tight end, it's not bad when you can do that. He also threw a touchdown, his only pass of the game, had a passing touchdown for 23 yards to Adam Fish, aka Adam Troutman. We talked about Chris Olave going down, 4 catches, 6 targets, 54 yards. Kind of explains his semi game. Semi stat line. He didn't play a whole game. New Orleans is they're there. They're quietly there, which is what's interesting. They really could have won against the Vikings last week in London. They pull off a win here. I don't hate where New Orleans is going with this team this year. Obviously, the Olave concussion, if it lasts more than a game, could be a bit of a problem. They will take on Cincinnati, so they could use Chris Olave. What are your thoughts on New Orleans?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we know Andy Dalton is not a bad quarterback. He's just not he has his issues, bad decision making sometimes. So yeah, to see this team continue to play decently and be in games and win this one, without Michael Thomas, without Landry, that's obviously great for them, but it says a lot to the fact that Olave is a very talented rookie. Having Kamara doesn't hurt, and they're doing some interesting things with Taysom Hill. So yeah, I mean, they seem like they're doing okay without Winston and Sean Payton at the helm.
Yeah, I don't hate. Man, the Saints score 39 points here is nice too.
Yeah.
Dalton only had 1 passing touchdown. Obviously, the other 3, 3 of the other 4 of them came from Taysom Hill. But still, if Olave's out, I'm not entirely going to lose faith on Andy Dalton. If Jameis Winston's back, obviously you want to have Olave if you're Jameis Winston. I think the team needs either Landry or Thomas next week but I don't think it's necessarily the nail in the coffin either.
Yeah.
Cincinnati we've seen slip up. So on the other side of the ball, Seattle, I just feel like they're better than their record reflects.
Big time.
I feel like that's just Geno Smith has a connection with both Lockett and Metcalf that is, if one's not available, the other one is. It's like he has 2 booty calls that immediately run routes. It's probably a bad way to put that, but it is what it is. Both Lockett and Metcalf look top notch, and they're probably the best they have looked in a long time simultaneously. I mean, I think that's like 3 games in a row where they've had semi-equal amounts of targets, catches, even yardage to a certain extent. I know we had that one game where Metcalf had 150, but even then Lockett still had 90.
Right.
So they're getting equal share, and it's working out for both of them. And especially in a game here where the run game, compared to what they did with Detroit, where they ran the ball, they ran the socks off of Detroit to a certain extent. Here, the run had its moments, but when Rashad Penny went out, it lulled for a bit, and it was still back and forth. The game had 6 lead changes and 5 touchdowns of 35 or more yards. So, I know Lockett had one that was, I only heard it over on Sirius for his at the end of the first half, but he caught like a 30-some yarder for a touchdown. It was like wide open over the middle. There's just, if you have that big playability, then I got to think that if Geno Smith is still pulling that off, if I'm the Seattle Seahawks, I have to feel like I won that trade with Denver so hard right now.
Yeah.
Like, really, like you stole from from the Broncos at this point. I don't know any other way to put that.
Yeah.
Geno's,
And real quick, this is like crazy to say, but is Russ not as good as we think? Was Pete Carroll a lot of the reason for their success? I don't believe that, but holy crap, like Geno Smith coming in and putting this team in a lot of close games and making Lockett and Metcalf relevant and having 250 yards on average, like good for Geno as well.
The Lockett Metcalf thing makes me believe it's not Pete Carroll because it didn't happen last year. The Geno Smith 5-week experiment in the middle of last year when Russell broke his finger, I think it was 5 games, would tell me it's probably not Geno Smith. I think it's the new situation for Russ that makes him look different, and we're also critiquing him very hard. And I will join that party. I will join that party wholeheartedly because expectations were high for him. They sold not the farm, but they took the barn and the fence around the field at least to get Russell Wilson. And it's not paying off, but no, it's not. It's just really not. Like,
they have the same record.
The Seahawks and the Broncos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only difference is the Seahawks have 3 first-round picks this year, and they have and they have Kenny Walker, who's probably going to blow up now with Rashad Penny being out. He's probably going to quickly escalate running back boards.
Yeah.
And you have 2 of the best wide receivers, which again, I'll say it, I'll take Lockett and Metcalf over Sutton and Judy. So that's just I feel like right now, if you're Seattle, you're looking at what the Broncos doing and you're going, oh, damn, I'm in a pretty good spot. In my opinion, in a much less competitive division. That's the other caveat to that. 2 and 3 in the AFC West is like, if it wasn't for the Raiders blowing the lead to the Cardinals, you'd be tied for last. Like, ugh, that's rough. And then here's Seattle, who, yeah, they just lost, but like, so did the Rams. Like, the only team that really looks threatening there is the 49ers right now.
Right. Yeah.
So, where was I? Oh, that's right. Geno Smith, 16 for 25, 268 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 to Lockett, 1 to Metcalf. Both Lockett and Metcalf had 5 receptions. Lockett with 6 targets, 104 yards. Metcalf, 8 targets and 88 yards. Ken Walker, Kenny. He had 8 carries, 88 yards, and a touchdown. The only not concerning because he's a rookie. He had that explosive run. I think it was 67 yards.
69.
69. Oh, look at this cool guy. But if you take away that run, that means he had 7 carries for 19 yards, which is below what you want. So
yeah,
we'll congratulate him on his run, and we'll forget about that small little tidbit. New Orleans is staying at the Superdome to take on the Bengals. Seattle travels home, where they will meet with the aforementioned Cardinals, which actually I think is going to be a really good game. I think that's going to be a matchup I'm interested in. So, anything else for you from you for this one?
I mean, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but Walker or Breece Hall rest of season?
Right now, Walker. There's nobody there. Right now, there's nobody there. Now, we're about to talk about Breece Hall because the next game is the Dolphins and the Jets, and Breece Hall looks a lot better from a team standpoint despite the presence of Michael Carter.
Hmm.
But Kenny Walker has so much more room to grow in it right now. There's no other, like Lockett and Metcalf don't have to catch the ball 12 times. Kenny Walker has been an underrated pass catcher in the backfield since before the draft. Now he's going to have RB1 reps, we can assume, safely 70%, 60 to 70%. They did pick up Tony Davis off New Orleans' practice squad. Who cares? That's insurance. He's Tony Jones, excuse me, not Tony Davis. That's not threatening Kenny Walker. You just watched what he did after Penny left. I'm picking if he's available on a waiver wire. Yeah, you should be on him. I think you said before he's 70% owned. So
Something like that, yeah.
that means there's 30% of people who should vie for him real hard. And I like Breece Hall, but he has to compete pass catching. He's got to compete with Corey Davis and Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin, who continues to get some targets thrown his way, despite all the names there, which is fine. But I'm just saying that hurts his total outlook. And here, I mean, Walker's got to deal with nobody for runs and maybe a little bit of Lockett and Metcalf if you go that way. So that's all I have. I would take Walker hands down. But Dolphins and Jets. Dolphins get creamed in this one. It didn't help that they lost their second quarterback in 2 weeks on the first play of the game. Basically, I don't think it was actually the first, but it was one of the first. I'm getting the sense that I know this is unfair to Teddy Bridgewater. So pulling Teddy Bridgewater out of this, assuming he probably plays this week, we can go one way or another with what I'm about to say. But I feel like this offense just can't hang with a lot of teams without Tua. Skylar Thompson, the 6th round, maybe. Is that right?
I don't know.
He's a late round quarterback. He's late round. That's all I know. But he
7th.
He was 7th. Yeah. Like he was okay for a fill-in. He moved the ball a little bit, but Tyreek Hill, ceiling's kind of clamped. Jalen Waddle, ceiling's kind of clamped. If you don't have Tua, you're not going to get 400-yard games out of Teddy Bridgewater. I know that. Their upside's limited. The Dolphins did not look good. And it's interesting to see, despite the offensive struggles that a changing quarterback has, the Jets really, I wouldn't say dismantled, but they made the Dolphins defense look pitiful at times. Zach Wilson I said this to you in pre-show, he's making throws when he needs to make throws, when his back's against the wall. He makes mistakes. He's a growing quarterback when he's not in that position, but he did it against Pittsburgh, and a lot of even long third downs. The first half of this game, Zach Wilson did very well. He's 14 for 21, had 210 yards. He had a rushing touchdown. I'm more excited about everything from the game standpoint here. I'm more excited about everything for the Jets going forward than I am for the Dolphins until I know Teddy Bridgewater's playing. And then from there, you can kind of assert yourself into where do you go from here? They will take on the Vikings next week. Miami will, which I think could be an interesting game if Teddy Bridgewater starts. I don't if Skylar Thompson starts. I think that game's rough for them. Raheem Mostert has solidified himself as the RB1, it seems. I don't think there's much debate about that. Are you surprised about that? I feel like I'm a little surprised.
I am surprised. Yeah. Chase Edmonds was very hyped up and they went after him. They didn't sign Mostert to a contract like that. So it is interesting. But yeah, he's been 2-3 weeks now with this type of usage.
Yeah, his workload keeps expanding and he's doing a lot with it. And the most important thing is after a very shaky 3 years in San Francisco or 4 years, he's healthy. He's staying healthy. He hasn't even had a Q tag, knock on wood. Good for him.
Yeah.
Miles Gaskin saw the field this week. Good for him as well. Yeah,
Another bit of a surprise there.
yeah. Well, I mean, when you're not getting it out of the guy you thought was RB1, you might as well spread some work. Tyreek Hill, 7 catches on 7 targets, 47 yards, 2 rushes for 13. Mostert, or as I call him, Colonel Mustard, 18 carries, 113 yards, 1 catch out of 3 targets for 9 yards. He did have a rushing touchdown. Cedric Wilson, 2 catches for 4 targets for 20 yards. Mike Gesicki, 1 catch on 2 targets. There was 30 yards, so it was solid. I think he's still sharing like almost a 50-50 timeshare at tight end with Durham Smythe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that changed this week. Yeah, Skylar Thompson, 19 for 33, 166 yards, 1 interception, no touchdowns. Sad panda. For the Jets, like I said, Zach Wilson keeps making plays, but the pieces around him look very good. He's not throwing it as much as Joe Flacco. I said that when we knew Zach Wilson was starting in week 4. This is going to take your 8, 10, 12 target games and literally throw them out the window for Elijah Moore and for Garrett Wilson. However, it has given a lot of room for the running backs to glow. It seems like Michael Carter is your red zone back, your goal line back. Sometimes you change the pace back, and everything else is Breece Hall. And I think that's a smart way to go about it. Breece Hall was a monster game. 18 carries for 97 yards. I'll take 5.1 per carry every day, won't you? 2 catches on 2 receptions for 100 yards, including a 79-yarder that was 3 feet shy of a touchdown. He did have a rushing touchdown. Breece Hall he's starting to look monstrous, to be honest. The offensive line is not amazing, but he creates gaps very well. With all that said, I'm still taking Kenny Walker. So if Breece Hall is on your waiver wire, which I think at this point is probably about as likely as Kenny Walker, if not even because of the timeshare, more likely, go get him. I don't see any reason not to. If you need running back help, obviously. Corey Davis, 2 catches, 4 catches, 4 targets, 38 yards. Garrett Wilson, 3 catches, 4 targets, 27 yards. Elijah Moore, 1 catch, 4 targets, 11 yards. Michael Carter, 10 rushes for 21 yards. He had 2 catches on 2 targets for 12 yards. He also had 2 goal line touchdowns. The other yard Breece Hall did not get, and he had another 1 or 2 yard run. Honestly, not a bad way to use Michael Carter. I don't think his archetype for a running back is much different than Breece Hall. I think if you were to trade Michael Carter away from the Jets, Breece Hall would be able to take it anyway. But all in all, it's a good split between the two. I'm ashamed I did not start Michael Carter this week, and I started lowly J.D. McKissick instead. The week that Michael Carter decides to go for 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But as I also said on Friday's show, Michael Carter, and I think last Tuesday, Michael Carter's touchdown dependent. He's becoming touchdown, and it shows. Without those 2 touchdowns, he's not playable. Breece Hall is probably going to be the workhorse in the backfield. All in all, I like the Jets offense. I don't think there's any problems between this and the New England win. The AFC East is tight. And that makes for a heck of a third of the season storyline, in my opinion. What are your takes from this game? I'll let you speak for a minute.
I was just gonna say real quick that Durham Smythe, to your point about getting some usage, he actually had a 1 yard, his single rushing attempt for a touchdown. I didn't throw that on there because whatever, but he is getting some usage. And then about Breece Hall and Michael Carter, we talked about this during the pre-show. Like Breece had a couple of long runs, one of which was like 79 yards, but he was getting the team going and getting them down the field. And I don't know like you said, Michael Carter being the end zone guy. I think some of it's also situational. Brees Hall having run the majority of the field, being gassed, so they wanted to give him a break because they want to make sure they get it into the end zone. So hopefully it's not that black and white, but I guess we'll get some more information moving forward. But it's trending in the right direction for Brees Hall. That's 2 weeks in a row that he's gotten some great usage and really taking over this backfield and doing a great job with it.
Yeah, can't hate on it. Actually, they split red zone targets or red zone stats. They both got 4 touches in the red zone.
Okay.
Now that leaves you a big gap because the red zone's 20 yards, and Michael Carter, 2 of them were from the 1 or 2 yard line.
Right.
But it shows that there's still snap count wise too. He is Brees Hall is up to 69%. Michael Carter is at 42%. So
that's still decent snap usage for
yeah,
Carter.
yeah, it's actually Brees Hall still getting a lot of the running work though. How many targets did Michael Carter have? More targets, or did he only have 2?
Only 2. Yeah, they each had
He did
2
have 10.
targets.
He did have 10 carries. He just wasn't as effective on his carries.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Nobody had a lot of targets in the Jets team. Also, I remember that Durham Smythe touchdown. I was listening to it. He faked. I don't even know. He snuck up behind the center and called for the snap, and the whole defense, the Jets defense, was literally asleep. It was kind of it sounded hilarious to me. It sounded like they expected.
Uh-oh.
They all just called hike and walked into the end zone. It was kind of funny. And Cheesehead Country to take on Green Bay, whatever that is. It just broke. Fix it. And Miami will take on the Vikings. Falcons at the Buccaneers is our next game. Falcons lose this game 15-21. The Bucs offense kind of came more prepared. Tom Brady was undefeated against the Falcons. Didn't change. Leonard Fournette is the story from this game. He had a 14 carries, 56 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. And he had 11 targets, 10 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown in the air. And I said it when Evans and Godwin were out. You need to utilize Fournette in the passing game. And geez, wouldn't you know it, they start doing it, and the team looks really good. Really, really good. Now, in fairness, Evans and Godwin only had 8 and 6 targets respectively, and that's a little lower than you'd expect for those two. But all in all, the team moves a little bit better when you start using Fournette out of the backfield. Brady 35 for 52, 351 yards. That lone touchdown coming to Leonard Fournette. Evans 4 catches, 81 yards. Godwin's caught all 6 of his targets for 61. Cade Otton filling in very admirably for Cameron Brate. 6 catches for 43 yards. No Julio Jones, no Brashad Perryman, no Cameron Brate in this game. So not like those are going to slow down. Like all the names we just talked about, minus Cade Otton, are what you need to move the Buccaneers offense. Atlanta has kind of had some defensive line weaknesses, it seems, which is the only spot. Their secondary's been solid. So it seemed like the Bucs just were okay with that and taking advantage of it. There's nothing else really to say about it. Mariota was not as consistent. He joins the list of one of the 3 quarterbacks who's kind of slouching back into pedestrian numbers.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about Jacoby Brissett in part 1. This is the second one. I think there's one more that I also looked at and I went, wow, you're not who you were, besides Jared Goff. He ran for 61 yards. Atlanta stuck to the run game here. But he was wasn't quite as stellar as he was, say, against Seattle a week or 2 ago.
Yeah.
Atlanta only had 89 yards of offense in the first half. They were outscored 13-0. The run eventually got going between Caleb Huntley, Tyler Algier, Marcus Mariota. Something kind of came of it. I don't know if sticking with the run is going to be the smartest decision if you're going to not have Cordero Patterson, but I guess you got to grow some way, right?
Yeah.
And Tom Brady stays undefeated against Atlanta. So Mariota 14 for 25, 147 yards and a touchdown. Not a horrible stat line. He's just not throwing it quite as much. Doesn't seem like he's making that many moves. He had 5 sacks. He was sacked 5 times, I should say, for 37 yards. Something pretty big for a quarterback who can move. Tyler Algier, 13 carries, 45 yards. Olamide Zaccheaus, 2 catches, 39 yards, 1 touchdown. I mentioned him on Friday's show as somebody who could probably benefit from Kyle Pitts missing this game, and he did. Drake London, 4 catches for 35 yards. He didn't have a catch until the third quarter, I believe. He was held in check for. I checked at some point in the second quarter, and he had 1 target and no catches. So that was where I was. Either way, 4 for 35. Not really taking advantage of the missing Kyle Pitts targets there. So all in all, Atlanta as a whole kind of missing part of its offense. They're a good team. Like they went into this game only losing both of their games by like a total of like 12 points or something. They lost by 4 to the Rams, and they lost to less than a touchdown to another team. So they're not horrible. It's just when you put up when you kind of put up a stat line, you can't move the ball for a half of the football game. It makes it tough to beat Tom Brady. Up next, Tampa Bay will take on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. Atlanta. Let's find out because I didn't write it down. NFL schedule. I'm clicking on it. It's not
49ers.
working. Okay, that's 49ers in Atlanta.
In Atlanta, yep.
So 49ers went to Carolina, and now they're staying out east. Take on Atlanta. Anything else that you may have from this game? I feel like this was kind of one we expected, like the outcome of. Nothing super surprising.
Ended up being a little closer, but all of Atlanta's points came in the fourth. So hopefully for the Bucks, they get back on the same page now that people are healthy and have more time to practice with each other, because this was an easy matchup. So I don't see this being the case moving forward.
Especially against a tougher Steelers defense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Steelers are not gonna. They're probably gonna be a little angry that they just got stepped on by Josh Allen. So, I guess we'll brush over this really quickly, and then we'll talk about it more when we get to the Monday night game. There was a roughing the passer call in this game that started the whole conversation of, do we need to look at this? I am firmly on the side of yes, we need to look at this. I think it's a little bit soft. I'll just say it. I think both the call that was the flag that was thrown on Grady Jarrett in this game, as well as the one that was thrown for Chris Jones in Monday Night Football, they weren't deserved. I've heard some chit chat between maybe we should start making it reviewable. This downfall with that is you start spreading into other, oh, well, we're already reviewing this. Why don't we review this? And then, football games become 5 hours long. It's just got to become more clear, the rules on it. I think if you're a quarterback, you're playing football. Like I don't understand about what part of getting hit is. I understand you're a fragile. Like you're not a lineman. You're not a linebacker. I get it. But I feel like some of these receivers and running backs, specifically running backs that are smaller than quarterbacks and much of the time, some of the time at least, they get hit twice. It's just as hard, not twice as hard, but just as hard. And it's not being reflected so much on quarterbacks. I understand there's a point where it's where the ball's been out of your hand for 3 seconds and you get blasted. I understand you're running out of bounds, or you go for a slide and you get clipped on the, anything above the belt. I get all that. But if you're throwing the football and they're blitzing you, you get thrown to the ground, that's not the rough in the passer call. If you fumble the football and you get tackled in the process, sorry, bud, should have held on to the football, not not a rough in the passer call. It's infuriating sometimes because, as we'll talk about later with Kansas City and Las Vegas, it's painful to watch games get affected by it overtly. So I don't like the chart. I don't like, and Tom Brady, his quote was, I don't throw flags, no tablets. He literally said that. That's a thing. And he's right. And also, he's also double right because he's not there to make the call. He's just not. And it looks like it's being called a little more effectively across the board, but I can't get behind it right now. I think they need to make it, if you get hit, don't put the weight on them and make every attempt not to. It has to be a cleared attempt. And that's it. Like, move along. We'll criticize calls anyway, so
Yeah.
but it's true. That's all I got to say about that. Do you want your own piece on it now, or you want to save it for the Raiders and Chiefs?
No, it's fine. There's definitely room for improvement. We don't need to belabor it.
Oh, I will, because it's a load of crap. Moving along. Texans and Jaguars. Jaguars lose this game 6-13. Couldn't find the end zone. Very bad. Embarrassing, really, for Jacksonville. This team, Trevor Lawrence might be the third quarterback I looked at and said, wow, after the first 3 weeks, you've taken a step back. Houston shut down Christian Kirk and Trevor Lawrence again. Last week, I think Trevor Lawrence fumbled 4 times. This week, he throws 2 interceptions and is wildly inaccurate with a good chunk of his throws. Jacksonville has just struggled offensively. The run game seems more confusing. It's obviously a young team. We know that. Travis Etienne, James Robinson, Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk. Like, I think the most experienced person on the offense throwing the ball is probably Evan Ingram. But it's pretty bad for a team that had a chance 2 weeks ago. You could have said this is the favorite to win the AFC South, and here we are. So I feel like they're disappointing. It's a fart in a church for me.
Yeah. Marvin Jones being the other experienced guy, but
oh, that's true. Yeah, he owned the guy who led this game in receiving for.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot all about him.
But yeah, I mean, we said that like week 3, I think we said, or I said, I won't put you on this train, but basically I said, like, what the heck's going on? Jacksonville is one of the most consistent teams, and now we're seeing that.
You jinxed it.
Yeah, I jinxed it, or
You
what have
ruined
you. But against a Houston team that, at least from a running standpoint, is pretty squishy. It's a weird,
Squishy.
yeah, it's a weird
There's a
outcome
word.
for Jacksonville here.
Yeah, I mean, Jacksonville it's not impressing me of the last couple of weeks. We'll say that. Dameon Pierce is official. He had a really good run in this game that just broke through some tackles. Trayvon Walker kind of sealed it for Houston with a really bad roughing the passer call. This was one of the scenarios where the ball was gone or the play was blown dead, and Trayvon Walker he said he didn't hear the whistle, and he laid out Davis Mills, and they were like, flag. For Houston, their defense has stepped up. It's nice. They're still giving up a lot of yards, but it helps if you can hold Jacksonville to 0-3 on 4th downs. That's turning over downs is part of your defense being nice. Houston had 2 takeaways on the Lawrence interceptions. You held Jacksonville mainly out of the red zone. That's a successful week. Davis Mills, 16 for 24, 140 yards. Dameon Pierce had the lone touchdown of the game on a 99 yards rushing. There it is. 3 catches, 14 yards as well. A bit of a flop for Brandon Cooks. 4 catches, 6 targets, 20 yards. Sorry, Brandon, you can do better. He should have a consistent target share. It's my take on it. Nico Collins, 4 catches and 6 targets for 65 yards. He led Houston in receiving. For Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, 25 for 47, 286, 2 interceptions. Travis, that's all right. Let's settle down. Travis Etienne, 10 carries, 71 yards. James Robinson had 10 carries for 27 yards. I don't know who's the RB1 anymore. They did not take advantage of anything here. Houston still didn't block the run. They combined to give up still 5 yards a carry, and they didn't take advantage of it anywhere. I don't get it. Marvin Jones Jr., 7 catches, 11 targets, 104 yards. Good to see him put up numbers. Evan Ingram had 10 targets. He caught 6 of them for 69 yards. Houston is on bye this week, so they can go celebrate because honestly, 2-2-1, they're not sitting too bad. They're sitting better than we thought. Jacksonville will travel to Tennessee, where they haven't won in their last 8 games. So this will be rip roaring. I don't have anything else from this game. I expect better out of the Jacksonville. Their defense has slouched the last couple of weeks. I mean, you can't say they really slouched, giving up only 13 runs. But if your offense isn't there, you have to turn it up on defense. I don't think there's anything else really to say. If Houston can get to 8-1, I think they should be happy this year.
Yeah. But so they've only won 1 game though, right? Yeah.
Maybe Houston.
This was their
That's
first
maybe.
win. They started
Was
off with
it?
a tie, then they lost 3 in a row, and then they won this one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They lost to the Broncos. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, they had a close match with the Broncos, close match with the Bears, and then the Chargers, they lost by like 10 points. But anyways, yeah.
You literally just listed 3 of my bottom 5 teams from Friday's show. I just want to let you know that. So it's not spectacular. Sorry.
The ETN James Robinson usage is funky. ETN got 10 carries here, whereas previously Robinson had been getting more carries and ETN had been more in the pass catching role. I don't know what's going on there, but ETN did more with his carries and did a lot with his 3 receptions on 5 targets. So I don't know if this is something we're going to continue to see or if this is a one-off.
I know Tennessee will be an opportunity for good bounce back for the wide receivers. I didn't put Christian Kirk's stat line here because it was bad.
Only 3
wasn't
targets
as well.
for Kirk.
But yeah, after averaging, I think 9.7 per game for the first 4 weeks. I think I had that right. Anyway, I expect a little more out of them. Tennessee just gives up yards to wide receivers. We'll leave it at that. I think we're going to take another break here. We're going to try and get cooking in section 3. We got 3 or 4 more games to go through. We got to go through our express lane, and then we got to go through our 4 downs and waiver wire. You ready to hop on?
Let's do it.
All right. We'll catch you guys on the other side.
This meeting is being recorded.
And welcome back to part 3 of episode 11 of the Fantasy Flyer. We're going to keep going with our week 5 review. Eagles at the Cardinals. Eagles end up coming away with the win here, 20-17. Seemed like the Eagles were just moving the ball more on the rush side. Came out of the pocket. Jalen Hurts came out of the pocket and scored twice. Kyler Murray is looking more comfortable throwing. Deeper downfield. His average depth of target has moved back 3 yards in the past 2 weeks, which is nice. I feel like he's getting more comfortable moving now that he has more pieces. He has Rondell Moore back. Moore had 8 targets here. Marquise Brown had 10 targets. The running game is still looking very bad, but that's okay because it wasn't very good when it was healthy. James Conner left the game in the injury. I think it was the second half. He'd had 55 yards on 9 carries prior to that. Zach Ertz also had 10 targets. Arizona really hung in this game for most of it, but it's the Eagles, and they look very unstoppable.
Undefeated Eagles.
Yeah, the only one left. For the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, 26 for 36, 239 yards, 61 rush yards, 2 touchdowns. Dallas Goedert had 9 targets, caught 8 of them for 95 yards. Devontae Smith, 11 targets, caught 10 of them for 87 yards. A.J. Brown, a lowly 3 receptions for 32 yards. He caught all 3 of his receptions. For Arizona, Kyler Murray, 28 for 42, 250 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Also had 42 rush yards. James Conner, like I said, 55 yards on the ground. Marquise Brown, 10 targets, 8 receptions, 78 yards, 1 touchdown. Rondale Moore, 8 targets, 7 receptions, 68 yards. Jalen Hurts, 6 catches on 10 targets, 48 yards. Anything else from this game?
We talked about the James Conner stuff. He got injured, and Benjamin was the biggest benefactor. Darrell Williams involved, but also potential injury issues. So that's pretty much it.
Fair enough. Philadelphia will face Dallas on Sunday Night Football. I think that's pretty much a lock for a host game. Arizona at Seattle. We got some good matchups this week. Philadelphia, Dallas Sunday night. Monday night is the Bills and the Chiefs. We're going to have to find a third one in there for our host. Speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, I think they really actually beat up on the Rams a little bit here. Dallas's defense was extremely top-notch. They pressured Matthew Stafford. I think he took 5 sacks. Thinking this one 5. I might have the right number. Don't know if I do.
3.
Aaron Donald.
Nope, sorry.
3
5.
sacks. Okay.
5.
I was right. Okay.
I was looking at Cooper Rush.
Yeah. I bet you was. Aaron Donald played well, but he couldn't get to the entire Dallas offense. Dallas stuck to running the ball. It worked. Even though Zeke had a lot more carries, Pollard was a lot more explosive. It's kind of the way it works at Dallas's backfield. Cooper Rush did okay. Another step back from last week, which was a step back from week 3. So I think Dak returning at the appropriate time. Dallas ran, the absolute hell out of the football. Over 150 yards rushing to only 102 yards passing. Gallup and Lamb were the only 2 targets really for Dallas.
Pretty much.
Schultz can get going, but he has to get healthy, and if he's questionable with another PCL sprain, maybe. Dallas, Cooper Rush 10 for 16, 102 yards. Zeke had 22 carries for 78 yards. Pollard had 8 carries for 86 yards, including a 57-yard touchdown run. CeeDee Lamb 5 catches on 8 targets for 53 yards. Michael Gallup 4 catches on 5 targets for 44 yards. For the Rams, Matthew Stafford 28 for 42, 308 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He got blown up, I think, on like the 3rd or 4th play of the game by Dorrance Armstrong, and he fumbled, and DeMarcus Lawrence recovered and took it back for a touchdown, and that's how that game started for the Rams. And it was at that moment that I knew the Rams were in trouble. Cam Akers, 13 carries for 33 yards. He specifically ran the ball, and Darrell Henderson only went for passing. I don't know what kind of thought process that was, but it didn't work. But it's good to kind of have them in their own area. Henderson 4 catches for 30 yards. Cooper Kupp 10 targets, 7 catches, 125 yards. He had a touchdown. Most of the Rams offense was 2 big plays. It was like a 70-some yard touchdown pass that Cooper Kupp ran, and there was another 50-yarder. And other than that, nothing happened for the Rams. They were absolutely landlocked. Tyler Higbee 10 targets, 7 catches, 46 yards. Ben Skoranek, it's important to note, this I think is his 3rd game in a row he's had 5 or more targets. He had 8 targets here, 6 catches, 41 yards. If Van Jefferson's going to be out for a while, he's probably the 3 here. Big stretch on that one, but it's good to see he's getting some work even in games where they're losing by a mile.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't really losing by a mile here, but they had nothing for other than the Cooper Rush touchdown. This is all Dallas Cowboys. That defense is for sure. It's top notch. We keep saying that. They'll really get a test against the Eagles, who have about 7 different ways to beat you. So, Dallas is in Philly matchup. The Rams will go home to face the Carolina Panthers in what will be a feel-good return game for all of them. Anything on this one from you?
I don't know what's going on with the Rams, but yeah, not really much to add here. The other long ball was to Tutu Atwell. Haven't seen him in a while.
And you won again. Moving
Yeah.
along. Sunday Night Football, Bengals and Ravens. This was a little bit of a slow. This was if football games are meals, this game was a slow cook stew. Baltimore's offense was Mark Andrews, Devin Duvernay, and no one else. Jackson was held in check just about everywhere. Still managed to catch the win, but he did not produce like we had seen in the first 4 weeks. He had 19 for 32, 174 yards, a touchdown and an interception. I should say only 58 rush yards, but he did have 58, so I guess that's pretty decent. Mark Andrews, 8 catches on 10 targets for 89 yards and a touchdown. Devin Duvernay caught 5 of them for 54 yards. No other Baltimore receiver had more than 2 catches or 10 yards. So it was rough. For Cincinnati, the offensive line seems improved again. I mean, it took 4 weeks, 3.5 weeks. Jamar Chase had his best looking game. You just need to get him some touchdowns. Hayden Hurst is a top 10 tight end right now. If he stays healthy, I'm very angry that I sold him as low as I did. I don't know why. It's my fault, really. Got to hold on to him. As Pappy says, assess value. No, I did not. He's the bailout option. When you check Chase and Boyd or Chase and Higgins or Higgins and Boyd, and they're not there, well, what's Hayden Hurst doing? Most of the time, standing around.
Yeah.
It's working for him in a fantasy sense. He had 6 catches on 7 targets, 53 yards, caught a touchdown. It's good to get, against his former team. He got in the end zone.
Revenge game, yeah.
Yeah. Chase had 12 targets, 7 catches, 50 yards. Would be a solid fantasy game, solid stat line if you had a touchdown with it. Burrow, 24 for 35, 217 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The other note from this is that Joe Mixon still looks like a mid RB2 to RB3. He's not. I'm pretty sure he has less fantasy points than Ken Walker. I don't know that for a fact. I could be very
just
wrong.
On the week, though, you mean?
Well, for sure on the week.
You mean total?
I know. Yeah, for sure. I don't think that's accurate. Who am I thinking of? There's somebody else who should not be beating him in fantasy points, and it's bad. I can't remember who it is. Not Ken Walker. I'm thinking about it. It's definitely not Ken Walker. Man,
Yeah.
that's gonna kick me. There was somebody I looked at that and I'm like, wow, Mixon is doing nothing this year. Walker was in split. I don't remember. Anyway, Cincinnati will travel to the Superdome to take on New Orleans. You're just getting a regular Superdome out of me for that one. Baltimore will take on the New York Football Giants, and I think the Giants are about to have a bad time. Maybe not. Who knows? Anything for you from that one?
The Ravens, I don't know. I'm starting to have some sort of concerns, but not really. It's just like if Lamar doesn't have a good game, then they're gonna have a rough time. He is just
with most quarterbacks, that's how that works.
Yeah, but like
more
you could
so
have
with him
you could
because
have a
he
running
also has
back.
a foot in a run game.
Yeah, you could have a running back that helps move the team along a little bit, but he is the number 1 running back and the QB. And they're putting a lot
Yeah,
on
that
him.
means your offense isn't moving if he's not.
Yeah.
It's fair. And those concerns are valid. I mean, here's the thing. The Giants are not good against the run. So here we go. To the Monday Night Football game. The Chiefs beat the Raiders on this one 30-29. First note, and I'll return to it. The officiating was atrocious. We're just gonna. It's a theme. I said it to you in pre-show. There was the roughing the passer, and then it seemed like the refs spent most of the rest of the game trying to make it up to the Chiefs, and that just. I'm not going to say that the Chiefs won because of that, because you don't know how it would have been otherwise. But defensive holding, weak call. I mean, the couple of pass interference. No, like, oh, it looks like intentional grounding 60 seconds after the play's done. We'll throw the flag now. No, like it wasn't impressive. And you can hear it. There's this video of one of the refs. It sounds like his voice is cracking because he called a penalty on the Chiefs at some point in the third quarter, and it sounds like he's afraid he's not going to get out of Arrowhead. It's just not good. However, interesting stat. I wrote this down. Mahomes is 12-9 since the beginning of 2018 when trailing by 10 or more in a game, which is a 571 winning percentage. And they did trail 17-0 at this one, 14-0. It was at least 14-0. Could be 17.
20. Oh, they were 7-0 after the first, but then at some point during the second, yeah, they were probably down 20-0, and then the Chiefs scored.
Wasn't 20. I know that.
Okay.
So I watched. It was in the teens. It was they were over 10. Anyway, during that same time span since the beginning of 2018, all other quarterbacks are 156 and 873 in that same time frame, which is a 152 winning percentage when facing a 10 point or more deficit. Patrick Mahomes is a different animal, and that's just a new fun way to tell your friends about it. If you weren't convinced of it, I think he's won 8 in a row now when he's down by 10, 7 in a row when he's down by 10 or more. He's different. Again, I'm going to throw the refs aside for a little bit. He played really good football. The first quarter was not his best quarter, but the last 3 certainly were some of his best. Points to Travis Kelce, who literally stood in the end zone and got thrown touchdowns. I think Derek Carr actually threw him a touchdown too. The Raiders, on the other hand, Josh Jacobs had a fantastic game. Come alive, young sir. He had 154 on the ground, had 5 catches for 39 yards. He caught a touchdown, had a rushing touchdown. And was also about 6 inches shy of a 2-point conversion that would have won the game for the Raiders. Mahomes is just you can't beat Mahomes really with the kind of teams that like the Bills will have a good chance on Monday because the Bills have been this close before, but I don't see the Broncos doing it. I don't see the Chargers. I don't see Patrick Mahomes is different level this year. Like he's hitting that Hall of Fame level that we see so often from certain quarterbacks not named Brady. What were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that call to go for 2 was an interesting call, and I guess they kind of talked about it. I think during the game that like probability wise, if you look at the numbers, there's like there's like 4.5 minutes left. You might as well go for it, get yourself in a winning stance or whatever. But you gotta wonder, like, they go for that field goal, game's tied, and they seem to be driving the ball well, Las Vegas, that is. I mean, both teams, but I don't know. They almost came down and did something towards the end of the game, so I guess it could have been the right call, but it wasn't. So I don't know. It was a little odd to me.
Yeah, I don't hate the call. I think you have to. I think you have to reassert yourself after giving up a 14 or 17 point lead. I think that's where I stood on it.
I guess the way I see it is being 31-30 and 4.5 minutes left against Patrick Mahomes. he's gonna. I mean, he didn't, but there's also a high probability that he's gonna score or get the team in a field goal position, and so that does nothing for you. You
Yeah.
tie it, and he does score, and you get the ball back, and you have an opportunity to do something there. But I don't know. There's obviously a lot of outcomes here. It's just interesting how much they really lean into and put trust in all of these like second gen stats, Amazon, whatever crap now
Yeah.
that they, like they put a lot of trust into those stats.
Well, and that's the thing about what I just brought up with him being 12-9 when trailing by 10 or more versus, his winning percentage is almost 4 times everything. The stats don't apply.
Exactly.
The stats don't apply. Like you don't see many people. Once in a generation do you see someone who beats the stats, and Mahomes is borderline. Like you have to almost assume he'll beat the stats. So
Yeah.
Mahomes 29 for 43, 292 yards. He had 4 touchdown passes. What a coincidence! Travis Kelce also had 4 touchdown catches. Oh my God. He had 8 targets, caught 7 of them for 25 yards, and every single one of Patrick Mahomes' touchdown catches. It seemed like in the red zone he had butter on. I don't know, couldn't be tackled. Jerick McKinnon, the random Kansas City running back who will succeed this week.
Yeah.
I feel like we're going to see Ronald Barber next week, or Ronald Jones. Excuse me.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Ronald Jones. Yeah, we'll see him next week. He'll have 10 carries for 73, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire had that ceiling game that we kind of knew he was very capable of because he's been held up by touchdown that was called back because his knee was down before he backed into the end zone. And that was one of the 1-yard touchdown passes to Travis Kelce, who is much more open than Clyde Edwards was. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 9 carries, 15 yards, 3 catches, 20 yards. Don't sell him. That's all I'll say. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 8 targets, 6 catches, 90 yards, led Kansas City in receiving yards. For Las Vegas, Derek Carr, 19 for 30, 241 yards, had a pair of touchdowns that both went to Devontae Adams. We went over Josh Jacobs' stat line. Adams, 3 catches on 7 targets, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 2 pass interference calls, 1 pass interference call, and they kind of got away with the second one. I don't know, something like that. It
Something
was
like
more
that.
messy officiating. Hunter Renfrow, welcome back. He caught all 4 of his targets for 25 yards. Las Vegas gets to recoup on a bye week as they are 1-4. Kansas City will go to Buffalo. I believe that's in Buffalo at Orchard Park. That will be a barn burner on Monday night. Anything else from this one for you?
Just that we talked about this in pre-show. This destroyed some of my matchups as it did many people. So
If you wish to on your own personal time, go to Twitter and type in Travis Kelce 4 touchdowns. You can see some of the good ones. I'm sure yours got destroyed. There's somebody who was literally up. I think they had Jacobs and they had Kelce, and they were down like 43 points or 45 points or something.
Jesus.
Yeah. Oh, some juicy ones, real juicy ones. That's when both score 30 fantasy points. Yeah, can turn a lot of games on its head. We're going to go down the express lane real quick. Talk about the other games that we don't necessarily have as much time for. Titans and the Commanders. Titans win this one 21-17. Ryan Tannehill was Ryan Tannehill, very average. Derrick Henry was healthy on the ground again. Washington started a little faster, never had a solid lead. Terry McLaurin is a wide receiver again, good for him. Curtis Samuel is still, in my opinion, this team's wide receiver 1. Gets more targets than anybody else. Antonio Gibson was outsnapped by J.D. McKissick and was even snaps with Brian Robinson. Welcome back, Brian Robinson. Gibson was very ineffective running. He's not as good of a pass catcher as McKissick. I'm fading Gibson basically from here on out, I think, unless something else tells me otherwise. Without a touchdown, like I said, Gibson, not fantasy relevant for me. De'Ami Brown, 2 catches for 2 touchdowns. Wentz had 3 fumbles. Derrick Henry, 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Robert Woods is still yet to capitalize on any and all of his targets. Tennessee is on bye. Washington will play one of the worst Thursday night football games in recent memory against the Chicago Bears. 49ers at the Panthers. This game was over about 17 minutes into it. 49ers win 37-15. Baker got replaced because of his injury. PJ Walker didn't do much after he got replaced. I don't know what I wrote that for. George Kittle was back, did very well. He had, I think, 47 yards on 5 catches. I'm in the ballpark. Jeff Wilson is good. Side note, where did Tevin Coleman come from? I know he was signed to the practice squad. I think he had like 3 catches for 22 yards and a touchdown, and he ran for like 45 yards and a touchdown. And they put him in the backfield, and they were like, oh, we don't have to worry about that. And they certainly did. DJ Moore and Shi Smith led the receiving pack for the Panthers and targets. Panthers are a bottom 5 team. Like, I said it on Friday's show. Like, Bears, Broncos, Panthers, Commanders, all in my bottom 5. Yes, I even said Broncos. You can take it for what it's worth. CMC was reported to be extremely upset, and I think he's starting to realize that he is worth so much more, and he can do so much better somewhere else with a team that actually wants to build around him, because they're not.
Yeah.
And reports have stated that several teams, including the Buffalo Bills, have inquired about CMC's availability, which is juicy. San Francisco will travel to Atlanta. Carolina will travel to Los Angeles to take on the Rams. Bears and the Vikings. Bears 22, Vikings 29. Another small step forward for Justin Fields. Actually moved to the offense. Thumbs up from me. Still in my bottom 5, but thumbs up. He threw it great at times. There's an amazing one-handed catch by Darnell Mooney. He just seemed to move the offense better. He's still running when he can't throw. Oh my God, don't stand in the pocket until somebody gets open. Move. Chicago almost made a full comeback. They were down 20-3. And I think at one point they had a 22-20 or 21-20 lead or something like that. For Minnesota, Justin Jefferson, 138 receiving yards in the first half, ended with 154. Dalvin Cook had 2 touchdowns and 94 rush yards, 27 yards in the air. Vikings Cam Dantzler actually stripped the ball with a minute to go to seal the win and end the Bears' comeback, because the Bears could have tied the game marching it downfield. Just some good defense from the Vikings. Vikings will travel to Miami. Chicago will once again host the worst Thursday night football matchup I think I can create in my head, and it's now happening in real life. Giants and the Packers, and what was a juicy game. Giants win this one 27-22 in the upset of the week. Giants held Green Bay to 0 points in the second half. Without Leonard Williams, the defense stepped up, held Aaron Jones, held A.J. Dillon, held absolutely everyone. Darius Slayton led the receivers with most experience on the team. I kind of said it on Friday. It makes sense, and he went out and did it. Big fantasy day if you picked him up off the waiver wire for those in desperate need. Giants seem like they're winning despite perpetual growing pains. They have these moving pieces other than Saquon, and they just keep finding ways to pull out wins. Different receivers. I think it's a testament to Brian Daboll being a good head coach. We'll kind of leave it at that one. Giants will travel to Baltimore. Green Bay will host the New York Jets. And that is the end of our Express Lane segment. Whew. A lot of football to go through right there.
I have to ask, because I did this before the break. When you say express lane, are you imagining like on the highway? For some reason, I was thinking a train, but I guess that would be an express train, not an express lane. Anyways.
So when you fly, there's an express lane. That was where I was going for with that.
Yeah.
Although I guess not every airport has that. Not every airline has that. So I guess that's a 50-50 too. But whatever.
Yeah, because I almost went choo-choo at the beginning of that segment. I was like, wait a second. I'm wrong on this. That is not right.
Yeah, that's all right. We're not going to. Real quick, we'll preview that horrible Washington and Chicago football game. So the only note I have here is don't watch it. Moving along. No. Chicago is favored by a point. Over under is 38. judging on how these two teams' trajectory has been, I'm actually leaning towards Chicago in this one. Kind of crazy, I know. Chicago does give up a lot of rush yards. Brian Robinson, I think, will probably be the biggest beneficiary of that. Chicago are only allowing 197 passing yards per game, which is where Carson Wentz has attempted to make the team succeed. Has been in the passing game. So just due to the juxtaposition of where the offense seems to favor for Washington versus what the defense will allow for Chicago, I see Chicago being more likely to pull out a win here. Plus, it's in Chicago. Soldier Field. It happens. Washington also has slow start syndrome. They have a tough time scoring on opening drives. And all of these things, I think, if you can't score in the first quarter or first 20 minutes of the game, and the crowd is getting on you because you're down 6-0 in a stadium that's not yours. I think that can get a little bit to some players, specifically Washington. So I have to think, if you're a Chicago Bears fan, this is a team you can beat. They're sliding. You have a better record than they do because they've been playing like Dookie in the first half of every football game. But it all depends on how Washington's pass rush really adapts. They are missing two pieces, and I don't know. I didn't write down the name on either of my notebooks. There's somebody who is out who left in the middle of the game. This pass rush is I guess they have a lot at stake this week. I probably should do better at writing these things down when I'm prepping. But Justin Fields is the slowest of starting quarterbacks to throw, averaging 3 seconds on a throw. Not good. Not good. I don't know if John Dotson will be back. I think you said he was questionable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if he's back, it's going to be interesting to see how they do handle all three heads of this. I'm going to take Chicago in this one for Thursday night. I am not going to be interested. I'm sorry on behalf of everyone who's a football fan, that Amazon ended up with the scraps, because this is not an interesting football game,
No.
in my opinion. I don't think I'm far off in saying that. But do you have anything else you want to add before we go to 4 downs?
I'll take Washington for this.
Okay. It's not our host v host, but that's an interesting opposite there. So we're gonna go to our 4 downs section. This is a true or false division edition. So we're gonna add an extra layer to this. I'm going to say my 4 statements, but one at a time, so that Taylor can agree true or false. If he says false, he has to fix the statement. And then when he is done with all 4, he will then rank the 4 statements. So I will go first in giving them to Taylor. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, you sounded very convinced at that one. Down number 1, the Cowboys will win the NFC East. True or false?
Oh, we doing this as we go?
Yeah, it's easier.
Oh, right. Okay. No, false.
Okay, fix the statement. Who's winning? Eagles?
The Eagles, yeah.
Okay, all right. Statement 2, the Saints will be a wild card team.
Oh. I'll go true on that.
Okay. The Bears will have a better record than the Lions in the NFC Central.
Oh boy.
Mind you, they do right now.
I'm gonna go false.
Okay, that one's pretty obvious, because to fix it, then you just flop the teams. So I don't have to.
Yeah.
Okay. And my last one, the Rams will have the worst record in the NFC West.
Yeah, I buy that.
Okay. Now rank them.
All right, can you give them back to me? Okay, good.
Eagles will win the NFC East. Saints will be a wild card team. The Lions will beat the Bears in the NFC Central, or have the better record. The Rams will have the worst record in the NFC West.
Okay.
Two hours later.
All right. I'm gonna go. I write it down so I can look at it. Most likely Eagles will win NFC East.
Okay.
Followed by Rams, worst record in NFC West.
Okay.
Followed by Lions, better record than Bears. And then
Saints
finally
wild
Saints.
card.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Let me hear your 4. Because I'm honestly not. I don't disagree with any of that. So I think the
Okay.
Eagles will win. I think the Rams are atrocious. I would almost mix the Rams and the Lions over the Bears, but they're kind of interchangeable in my mind. So, all right, your turn.
All right. I basically just did lose or win, but Jets will lose the AFC East
True.
over instead of the Pats losing.
Well, losing. What do you mean losing the AFC East? Like, yeah,
Lo-
they're not gonna. I don't think either one's gonna make the playoffs. That's what you're saying.
No, but all right, worst record in the AFC East.
Ooh, okay, that's better. No, false. I'll put the Pats there.
Okay. Browns win the AFC North.
False. Put the Ravens.
Okay. Jaguars win the AFC South.
True.
Broncos will lose or have the worst record in the AFC West.
True. And in
Okay.
order, I put Baltimore winning the North is most likely. Broncos having the worst record in the AFC West second. Jaguars winning the South third. And the Pats having the worst record in the East fourth. Because that could really go anyway.
Okay.
I think I kind of have it set that there's Baltimore is the most put together team in the North, so I think that was the easiest answer of those for me. I don't think the Browns are going to be as cohesive towards the end of Brissett's run or when Watson comes back and that team changes dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think they'll definitely beat the Texans when he comes back. So that was our 4 down segment. I kind of like that one. We'll do it again towards that like the midpoint of the season where we do another division because things can change so much in 5 weeks. But real quick, we'll go through a waiver wire to wrap up the show. I only have a few names that are here for wide receiver myself. Randall Cobb and Alec Pierce and Darius Slayton. I think you added Slayton.
Mm-hmm.
Khalil Shakir is another good one. You just wrote that down. Alec Pierce for sure. He led the team in targets. I know it's Matt Ryan. He hasn't been stellar, but no reason to run from Alec Pierce. Ken Walker we brought up. Eno Benjamin. If JT is out again, Deion Jackson. I think Naheem Hines is out this week again. Maybe not. I don't know. Would you rather have? This is gonna be an interesting one. I'm gonna throw you for a bit of loop. Would you rather have Kenny Pickett versus Tampa Bay or Bailey Zappi versus Cleveland?
Tampa Bay has a good secondary. I don't know if it's my bias, but I might go Zappy.
I don't disagree. When you wrote wide receiver, you put Hopkins here. Do you talk about DeAndre Hopkins?
Yeah, because he'll be coming back soon if he's available.
Well, yeah, this is week 6. This is the last of his suspension. This is the
Right.
last game of his suspension.
So yeah, maybe I'm on the.
I'd be surprised if somebody wasn't stashing him already.
Right.
I
Yeah,
would be. That's fair. Okay.
but throwing it out there might be a sneaky move.
Yeah. De'Ami Brown. If Jahan Dotson's back, I do not trust De'Ami Brown
Right. That's if he's out. Yeah.
if he's out. I don't trust Jerick McKinnon's workload, which also rules out just about everybody else with Kansas City. So sorry. Ken Walker is literally my waiver wire. Spend all your fab on him. If he's there, give up. He's going to be a top 20 RB from here to the end of the year. Bottom like that at worst top 20. Evan Ingram is still playable. Hayden Hurst is still playable. Do you have any you want to ask me? Because I think I have a good grasp on this. These are a lot of the names we've been saying for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, not a whole lot of new names here. I guess I will ask your thoughts on Damian Williams. So he's coming back. He's been injured. He was involved before he went out. Now Cordell Patterson's not there. Tyler Algier is a rookie. Does Damian Williams come back to decent usage, or you think they keep riding the rookie?
I think it's going to be committee, which makes it way less entertaining than, say, Benjamin if James Conner's out. If you have anybody who can get over 50 to 60% of snaps, they're more entertaining to me than Damian Williams. So obviously Ken Walker, given. Trying to think of another good example. I would take Benjamin if he's out. I would definitely do that. I would take trying to think of somebody else who'd be. I would go Brian Robinson because he's probably on a good chunk of waiver wires. So,
hopefully. I mean,
yeah.
If you were smart enough, you already grabbed him, but
You stashed him. That's right. Stash is the biggest thing.
Jacoby Myers might be available in some leagues, and when we've seen him out there, he's been doing pretty well in PPR leagues. So if he starts getting touchdown work like he did this week, that's only going to be better. Wan'Dale Robinson might be coming back from injury. They don't have a lot of
3 weeks.
I know, right? They don't have a lot of weapons. If he comes back, he is probably the most talented wide receiver they have right now. Granted, he's a rookie. Yeah. He needs to get used to the system, and he's been hurt. So I don't know how much he's picked up so far. Nico Collins, I think we've already said him in previous weeks. He seems to be getting more acclimated with the
15 seconds.
Let's sign it out.
We're almost there. All right, we're going to sign it off. I'm Derek. This is Taylor, and Bob Barker signing us out.
Bob Barker reminding you, help control that problem.